There is a ghost from 1914 living inside your bank account right now. Most of us are taught that World War I was won by soldiers with tanks and bayonets, but the real victory happened in the bank books. The winners did more than just defeat an army. They completely rewired the way money works to make sure you would still be paying for it over a century later. Forget about the trenches for a moment. This was a financial war fought with gold piles, bond markets, and secret meetings held by bankers who never saw a battlefield. While soldiers were giving their lives, governments were busy playing a dangerous game with their balance sheets. What they decided during those 4 years changed the global money system in ways that still trap people today. If you think war is only about politics, you should look closer. The Great War proved that money is a weapon, and it is one of the deadliest ever created. In 1914, Europe was ready to explode. Beyond all the talk of honor and flags, there was a cold reality that no one wanted to admit. A war of this size was impossible to fund. When leaders chose to fight, they were also choosing to drown their countries in debt. Every empire marching its troops to the front was also marching its people into 100 years of financial burden. At the beginning, everyone thought the fighting would be over by Christmas. They planned to pay for it the old-fashioned way by using gold and asking for donations. That dream fell apart in weeks. The war was burning through cash faster than anyone had ever imagined. Back then, the world ran on the gold standard. This meant your paper money was actually a receipt for physical gold. It made money feel real and trustworthy, but it also tied the hands of the government. You could not simply print more cash because you did not have the gold to back it up. But as millions of men were sent to fight, the math became brutal. Germany was spending over 36 million marks every single day. Britain was soon spending 5 million pounds a day. The gold was running out, and it was running out fast, so the governments decided to break the rules. One by one, the world powers stopped using the gold standard. They quietly told their citizens that money was now just a promise. It was backed by nothing except faith in the state. This was one of the most massive shifts in human history. Money was suddenly free from the weight of metal and driven by printing presses and credit instead. Once governments realized they had this power, they never looked back. Since Germany was cut off from the rest of the world by the British Navy, they had to borrow from their own people. Berlin started huge campaigns to get regular families to put all their savings into war loans. It was basically a giant pyramid built on the hope of winning. When those loans vanished into thin air, they took millions of German families' savings with them. That anger became the perfect fuel for extreme movements years later. Britain had an advantage because London was the center of global finance, but even they ran out of money. They had to turn to the United States. In 1914, America was not even in the war, but its bankers saw a huge opportunity. Firms like JP Morgan became the lifeline for the Allies by managing massive loans and weapon deals. By 1917, Wall Street had been funding the war for years. This was not an act of kindness. It was a financial takeover. The United States ended the war as the ultimate lender to the world. If you ever wondered how the 20th century became the American century, it did not start on a battlefield. It started in the ledgers of the banks. When the guns finally stopped in 1980, the world was buried in debt. Britain owed the US over $4 billion, and France was close behind. To pay for it all, they tried to squeeze Germany for massive amounts of money. It was a complete fantasy. Germany could not pay, and their attempt to do it led to prices rising so high that a loaf of bread cost billions of marks. The US was lending money to Germany so Germany could pay France, and France could then pay the US. It was a financial merry-go-round built on the edge of a cliff. When the global economy crashed in 1929, the entire system did not just break, it shattered. The rules written in 1914 are still being used today. Every modern money crisis has echoes of that era. When you hear about central banks saying inflation is temporary or governments raising their debt limits, remember 1914? That was the moment they learned they could fund almost anything by detaching money from reality. The lesson is simple, but harsh. In a financial war, the person who saves their money is usually the first to get hurt. Real wealth is not just a number on a screen. It is the ability to see through the illusion. History might not repeat itself exactly, but it definitely rhymes. The real story is always hidden in the balance sheet. We are still living in the world that 1914 created. If you want to go deeper into the secret history of the bankers who actually ran the war, I highly recommend reading Lords of Finance. It is a fascinating look at the 4 men who held the world's economy in their hands. I've put a link to the comment below. Do you think the current system of using debt to fund everything can last forever? Or are we just waiting for the next big crash? I want to know what you think. If this gave you a new way to look at the world, hit subscribe.